Perfect.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. We've got Daniel Epstein with us today. He's the founder and CEO of the Unreasonable Group. You don't want to miss this episode. We're talking to one of the coolest, hippest, most impactful entrepreneurs in the world. So stick around. You don't want to miss this episode.
Welcome to the Your Mark on the World show with your champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
Daniel, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we're excited to talk about what you're doing. Give us some foundation. You're a big deal in the impact space, super
My mom thinks so.
entrepreneur. You're focused on all these good things. But tell us a little bit about the Unreasonable Group.
Yeah, so I think it's important. Well, first, thank you for your overly kind words. They are overly kind, but I appreciate it. I think whenever introducing Unreasonable, it's important to admit our biases and our assumptions. And we have one that's very, I think, evident. And we're pretty loud about it, and it's almost a diehard belief in the ability of entrepreneurs to solve nearly any seemingly intractable problem that we're faced with today. And it's a good segue into what we do. The reason we believe so much in entrepreneurs, part of it's the posture of an entrepreneur, as you know very well. It's unique. And where most of the world sees market failures, an entrepreneur has a curiously warped perspective. They see a market opportunity, but it's not just about having a good idea. It's about having the impatience with that good idea to have to will it into existence. I would say, at the start, in a world with so many market failures, so many issues, so many challenges, we desperately need to, support that level of thinking and doing. The other reason we believe so much in entrepreneurs is we worked with many on the front lines and seen how effective they can be. So today, across everything that we do at Unreasonable Group, we work with about 200 growth equity CEOs. In terms of financing, they've raised over $2 billion in equity. They've generated nearly $2 billion in revenue. Much more important to us, they're impacting well over 200 million lives in just over 180 countries. And that's everything from the fastest growing distributed solar company in sub-Saharan Africa to the most efficient hydrogen cell-powered vehicle we could find that gets 300 miles to a liter of water, of hydrogen. But the only thing that comes out of the exhaust pipe is purified water. You can drink tea, from it, to drones that can plant 100,000 trees in a day. Whatever it might be, Unreasonable exists to support entrepreneurs who have the courage to do what others think is impossible in the pursuit of betterment of the planet or society.
Now, you're currently starting a new initiative or operating an initiative. I don't know that it's new. Tell us how new it is. But the Unreasonable Impact, a partnership with Barclays. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's our largest, most significant partnership, certainly. We work with a number of multinationals, but we were really grateful to team up with Barclays and co-found what we call Unreasonable Impact. And it's actually important to start there. If you look at the logo, we're really intentional. It doesn't say sponsored by or made possible by Barclays. It says created with. This is truly co-designed and co-founded. Unreasonable Impact, we're looking at working with those we believe are the most effective CEOs across Asia Pacific, Europe, and the Americas, who are positioned to do two things. One is create the jobs of tomorrow. So a baseline point that we look at is, can this CEO and their company create at least 500 jobs in the next 5 years? If the answer is yes, then we're interested. But the other element of the partnership is within the green economy. And in essence, that means baked into the DNA of the profit model, they're solving an environmental problem. And the more profit they make, the better the planet is. So that can be, it's obviously renewable energy and clean tech, but that also takes you into the future of food, future of water. It takes you into smart city design, zero waste manufacturing, closed loop manufacturing, kind of the whole thing. And the premise of the partnership, and the reason Barclays and ourselves are so excited about it is, a realization that what the internet's done and is still doing, which is in essence permeating every vertical, every industry, soon to be every geography. Green's going to do the same. it is the future of business because it's just going to be financially smarter. And if we can help transition companies around the world and transition our economy to sustainability profitably faster, there's a huge impact that we can have there. So we support now, I believe it's 92 companies through Unreasonable Impact. I had amazing businesses in the last 2.5 years. So we started it just under 3 years ago. In the last 2.5 years, those companies, they've created over 7,000 net new jobs. They're actively employing about 20,000 people. The numbers in terms of impact, it's about 105 million lives they're reaching directly with their product or services. Similar numbers in over 180 countries. There's remarkable people. The stories of each individual company is kind of what brings it to life. But we really scour the globe and handpick those we think will be the future titans of industry, but we mean it in that sense.
In so many ways, the world is making great progress. Poverty really is on the decline. We're seeing global health improving in general around the world, not universally, but in general. I mean, we really are making some great progress. Yeah. I identify two areas where we are not making progress, where we're going backwards. And they may be correlated, but one is global warming, climate change. We are continuing to produce too much carbon, and that is likely to have devastating effects on the planet and its people in the very near future, within our lifetimes. And also, we are seeing an increase in the number of refugees around the world and internally displaced people, with that number now approaching 70 million people. What's your take on those problems and why they're so intractable, and how are we going to solve them?
So unfortunately, I heard the point on refugees, but I missed the problem right before that. Can you say it one more time?
Yes. So climate change, yes. Our human activity is not making nearly the progress we need on climate change. Yeah. What's your take?
Totally agree. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that there's that quote, and I should remember who said it, but it's the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. I think that the technologies that we need to reverse climate change and actually have a regenerative economy, they're there, but they are the farthest thing from widespread. I mean, 1 billion people still don't have access to electricity. And what do you use when you don't have access to electricity, or you have infrequent, intermittent access to the grid? You're using diesel or you're using kerosene. If there's still force left, you're cutting them down. So how might we more quickly get technologies like solar to these individuals? The technology's there. Like an example, D-Light's brought solar to 88 million people. How can we take what's effective to 1 billion people more quickly? We just worked with a company called Inventus out of Vancouver. Their technology is positioned to be able to sequester 2 gigatons of carbon out of the atmosphere annually. To get back to the levels we need in the climate, we need to remove 7 gigatons each year. That is a huge, it's a huge portion of the problem that one company can solve. And this is where I have a balance of optimism, because we work with the companies that are doing it, but true impatience, like immediately adjacent to that optimism, which is if we do it faster, we're going to fail. And I think that's really the reason why we exist at Unreasonable. It's to find the solutions that can solve climate change, that can ensure that environmental refugees, which is a very, very real thing, ideally are a problem of the past and not of the future. But we're not kidding ourselves in the sense that it's hard to be able to scale these technologies at the rate at which I would say the global situation demands. So I think we're not there. We need more financing. These companies need a lot more support. There's a lot of support, not enough. There's a lot of support around trying to get startups off the ground. No question, we need more of it. But there's a very serious dearth of support around a company that has a proven technology is in market, and how do you take it from you bring clean drinking water to 1 million people in rural Nigeria? How do we take that to 100 million people faster? It works. It's profitable. And there's not much support there because I think most of the world, not most of the world, that's an exaggeration. A lot of us in the space of supporting entrepreneurs think that, well, because you've been in operation for 7 years and the economics of your business are sound, then you've got it figured out. But the truth is that if we could actually help the companies that are already effective in market scale what's working faster, I think then we'd see the needle move quicker. But I'm with you. Sense of urgency is very palpable. We couldn't do it fast enough.
Yeah. It seems that entrepreneurs don't work in isolation. The global economy exists across international borders that are create sort of a patchwork quilt of regulation and support or lack thereof for entrepreneurship and business, regulations to protect the environment. How do you see the role of government in solving these problems alongside entrepreneurs?
Such a good question. I would say if you had asked me this question 5 years ago, I would have been naive and said that the private sector can do it. And then I've learned that is foolhardy in the negative sense of the word. And that public policy has a remarkable ability to grease the skids around getting these technologies to market more quickly. They also have a remarkable ability to create friction. And you can see either or. I think that there's a huge role for public-private partnerships. A lot of our companies have received financing from governments. A lot of our companies actually sell into governments because they're solving key problems that exist there. A lot of our companies operate in specific countries and not others because of taxation policy or incentive structures, whatever it might be. I think that it's critical, especially as we're starting to work with companies almost exclusively that are at this growth equity stage in development, and to be able to go from a reasonable amount of scale to national or regional or intercontinental scale, the private sector has to work hand in hand with the public. What I think is exciting about that is the agenda is shared. Everybody wants to. I don't think there's whether you're liberal or libertarian or you're Democrat or Republican, it makes no difference. Like, we would all agree that if we can scale solutions that solve societal challenges profitably without taxpayer dollars and that create jobs, that is a win for anybody. The truth is I think most people who are outside of the space of working directly with the types of entrepreneurs we work with don't even know that their technologies exist. They don't even know that this is real. And so part of crossing the chasm is to bridge conversations that aren't normally had. So, and then to create access between these policymakers, government officials, and the types of entrepreneurs that we're so privileged to support. I would acknowledge, although we do work with government, we have only scratched the surface. I think we've done 1% of the work that unreasonable organizations like us need to do. I love your question.
Daniel, what are you most proud of having accomplished? Having, by the way, accomplished a lot.
It's so funny. I want to deflect that question and say we haven't done much. But if honestly, it's probably a couple things. It's not necessarily a specific thing as much as it is. I feel like we've been able to design an organization that can strives to make the right decisions, but always strives to do so for the right reasons. We're very much a values-driven company, and a lot of companies say that, but when push comes to shove, and especially when the bottom line comes into friction with your values, oftentimes there's a claim there's a fiduciary responsibility and so on and so forth. I really feel like we've never settled on that, and in doing so, what I'm most proud of is that the culture and the team that I'm so grateful to work alongside of. I think it's our secret weapon. And it, it's impossible to describe that until we've really worked with you. But I am like truly humbled by the quality of the team, and I think that greatness is emergent out of culture and the people you can put behind it. Yeah, I would also just say we are like truly relentless about being entrepreneur centric, and it's not lip service. I think part of that comes from I am my own customer. I created Unreasonable selfishly because I wanted it to exist for me. The irony is I wouldn't get into my own club, which was the goal. But putting entrepreneurs at the center of our universe makes me really proud. And the reactions that we get from the companies and the amount of direct value that we can drive is meaningful. But it's really like the value and the postures of the organization and the community that rallies behind these companies is what I'm probably most proud of.
Daniel, what is the most important lesson you've learned over your experience over the last decade or so?
It's a great question. Probably. So one of our mentors. So we work with about 200 entrepreneurs. We have about now 400 mentors. A lot of the mentors are serial successful entrepreneurs who we would know a lot of their names. One of them, his name's Kamran Alahian. He started a couple B2B companies, but three of them ended up being well over $1 billion businesses. And I sat with him because at one point he was chairman. He was CEO and he was chairman of another company that he had started, and they were both valued at over $1 billion. And at the same time, he was in essence kind of running both of them. And I had a team of 5, and I was struggling, so I had no idea how this was possible. And I asked Carmen, I said, how do you do that? How can you manage 2 teams that have thousands of employees, both of them? And he said, look, the aspirational goal of you as an entrepreneur needs to change. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he used an American football analogy where he said, look, most entrepreneurs, we believe that the goal is to become the quarterback of the football team that wins the Super Bowl. So now as the quarterback, nothing happens until you hike the ball. You're in the middle of the play of field with your teammates. You call every play. So, but if you want to create a company that can make $1 billion, but much more importantly, impact 1 billion lives, because if that's your aspirational goal, then you need to realize that the end game is to become the coach, not the quarterback of the football team that wins the Super Bowl. And as the coach, you have 2 jobs. The first one is get the best players that you can afford into the positions that they're best at. And the second one is culture, which is, in essence, the Mighty Ducks, right? How do you create a culture in which individually and collectively we do things we formerly thought were impossible? And that's a real lesson, because that's that awkward transition from entrepreneur to CEO, in essence, which is totally unnatural in almost every way, because you're used to being in the middle of the field, calling every play, and honestly playing way more than just one position. But I learned that if I'm able to do that, if any entrepreneur is able to do that, then you can actually scale, because it has to scale beyond yourself. And the way that I think that is truly done is through culture. So that there's a lot of other lessons. I worked. I'm still a workaholic, but at one point it was a borderline obsession, and that's not healthy. And there's a lot of things that went wrong because of that. But that's probably the big one.
So Daniel, when you think back to when you began Unreasonable Group, you are a young man. You were a very young man at the time. What was it that made you so focused on impact, on changing the world, on solving real problems? Why did that matter to you so much that you devoted your life to it?
Yeah, it's the realization that you can, right? So I remember I was 18 years old. I was originally studying math, finance, and econ. And then dropped those degrees to study philosophy. I had a curiosity about things, and I loved philosophy because I realized I could learn how to think, not what to think. I remember towards the end of my first semester writing in my journal. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know what that meant. All I knew is that it was notably hard to become one and be a good one. And that the odds are stacked against you. So I had all these business ideas in my journal, and none of them were really sticking. I didn't have any gravitas. Was it going to be an e-commerce business, an apparel company, whatever. And I decided to put my 18-year-old philosopher hat on and ask myself the question, what is entrepreneurship? And what do all entrepreneurs have in common? And I wrote on a line in my journal, I said, all entrepreneurs design solutions to problem sets. I wrote on the next line, well, I can choose what problem sets I want to solve. And I wrote on the next line, I'm only going to work on problems that's worthy of my life's work. In essence, I could give a damn if I'm 18 years old or not. The one thing I know about entrepreneurship is that the odds are stacked against you. And I figured if I'm going to leverage my relationships, my equity, my sleep, my reputation into starting a business, and that business can solve any problem, why not start a company that if we're successful, we bend history in the right direction? It's just more exciting. And so there was not a point of obligation or responsibility. Obviously, the words I used back then were not so elegant in that sense, right? But that was it. It was just a realization of possibility. It is going to be hard as sin to start any company from scratch. Why not start one that actually makes the world significantly better when it succeeds? I don't understand how you couldn't not do that.
Yeah.
Once you realize you can.
Yeah. Daniel, what's your superpower?
I want to ask you that question. I'm so curious. But what is my superpower? I think that what people find odd about me is probably what that might be. I really I'm aggressively optimistic. I believe that if you put your mind to it, you can do almost anything. And now I do want to acknowledge I said it from a place of privilege. And that born into the U.S., I'm a white male. I have a healthy family. My rock bottom is not that low, and so the risks I take aren't as high as it might be for a lot of people. But I think my superpower is not having a sense of fear when in terms of going after something that nobody else has done. I don't ask myself the question, why hasn't anybody else done this? I usually ask myself the question, like, how does this not exist? We have to build it. I remember a point in time where I was about $1 million in debt, maxed out on 5 credit cards. In my bank account, I have minus $9,000. I don't know how I'm going to make payroll in 4 days. That was my life for 8 years in essence, but that was the pinnacle of it. And I hope I don't go back there. And yet I didn't have a hesitation of doubt that this wouldn't exist, because it felt like it had to exist. And that, come hell or high water, the team, myself, we were gonna will it into existence. And so there's an element of, it could be stupidity that's driving that, right? I don't think it's, at least I hope that it's not arrogance. I think I like to think that I'm actually reasonably humble, but it is confidence, and I think that just comes with clarity. So in essence, it's envisioning something that could be, and then doing everything you can to make it happen, but not feeling stressed along the way. And if I got stressed every time a door was closed, or every time I had to go ask a friend for another loan, then there's no way this would be possible. And part of that, once again, is luck. I have great friends and amazing support network. But I think there's a foolhardiness that is it's both a great strength and probably a great weakness too.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Before you go, would you take just one moment and tell people how they can learn more about the Unreasonable Group and how they can connect with you personally?
Yeah, absolutely. So Unreasonable Group is just unreasonablegroup.com. And the partnership we were talking about that we've co-created with Barclays, that's just unreasonableimpact.com. You can see all the companies that we work with. If you go into their company profiles, you can go to the careers page if you're interested in aligning, with their trajectories. And you can follow us, of course, across social media. Nobody really wanted the word unreasonable, which was great. And so /unreasonable or @unreasonable on any social media channel, you'll find us there. And I would say, to entrepreneurs who are interested or kind of eager to align with us, there is no application process. You can't apply to become a part of the fellowship, but we would still love to hear from you. So feel free to reach out, just info@unreasonablegroup.com, and we'll direct you to the right person on the team. We definitely are, we like to say, pathologically collaborative. So eager to work with any and everybody who is either an entrepreneur or wants to support these entrepreneurs.
Fantastic. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for taking the time to be with you. We wish you every success in solving all of the world's problems.
Devin, you're too kind. Thank you for the time. I really do appreciate it. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
All righty. Let's do some good.
Thank you for listening. Devin Thorpe's mission is to end extreme poverty, improve global health, and mitigate climate change before 2045 by finding and sharing the stories of those who are doing the most good. You can join with other listeners to accelerate Devin's mission by visiting helpdevin.org right now.